going on to talk about while loops, I want to introduce the input box as a way of getting input from the user, and we'll use that in a while loop in the next video. We've used message boxes so far. If I click the demonstrate message box, I get, are you a programming mobile app major? And if I say yes, we get another message box that says that's fantastic. If I click that again and say no, we get a message box saying consider this. Did you know that software developer is the #1 job of the top 100 jobs in the United States according to US News and World Report? So we can handle those two buttons. But message boxes are limited just to those specific set of buttons that are available to us in the message box syntax. I want to show you the input box. In the input box, we can have the user enter a string. So we're asked to enter first and last names. And if I type in George Washington, I can handle that input when I click OK, and I separate out the name George from Washington, and I say, welcome George, greetings to you and the whole Washington family. But I also use a while loop here in that if I don't put in a first and last name, I'm going to type in Elvis, and I'm told your entry was not in the format of first name, last name. And I click the OK button, and because it's in a while loop, it asks me to do it again. Well, my dog's name is Serenity. Let me put that in. And again, my entry was not acceptable. I click OK, and I'm asked to do it again. I'm just going to choose John Doe. And then I finally get the message, welcome John, greetings to you and the whole Doe family. And so that is using a while loop with an input box, and the while loop continues until the input is in the format that we want. Maybe we're asking the user to enter an integer in that box, but they don't enter an integer. We can keep forcing them to re-enter it. The program I've just shown you here is not a C# program. It is a Visual Basic program. And Visual Basic and C# are extremely similar. They both use Visual Studio, and much of the language is the same. But Visual Basic has this cool input box statement that is not part of C#. But I want to show you a trick of how you can use Visual Basic's input box feature in a C# program. But first, let me show you the code in Visual Basic. So here I am in Visual Basic within Visual Studio. Now it looks just like C#, and the only thing that gives it away is looking at my form here. It says form1.vb Visual Basic instead of form1.cs C#. And here's my code behind, but the interface is exactly the same. We have all the same tools between Visual Basic and C#. So I have my two buttons here, and these are both coded the same way by double-clicking on them. Let's go look at our code in the form1.vb. So here's my Visual Basic code. We get a stub, much like we get in C#, but the code looks slightly different. So we declare variables using dim statements, which is slightly different than we do in C#. Here, though, is my while loop. I have a while repeat and an end while, and this is going to be slightly different in C#. What I want to focus in on here is the use of the input box. So the input box looks much like a message box statement. I say XYZ, that's a variable, going to be the string that's returned that the user enters in the input box. And then I have an equals input box, which is a method. And the first string here is the prompt that is shown. I have a comma, and then the title, a default value, that was the John Doe that comes up, and then I specified some coordinates of where I wanted that located in relation to my program. But this does not exist in C#, but it's extremely useful to get input from the user by them enter stuff into a dialog box. And they're always entering a string, and then we can parse that out of a string value into a double value or an integer value and so forth. So let me show you how we can do this in C#. In our Canvas course site, I do have a handout on how to use the input box statement. And so if you go into the modules and scroll down, it is currently residing in Unit 4, Repetition Structures and String Methods, and there's a handout there on using the input box with both VB and C#. I'm going to click that. And then I would suggest downloading the PDF. I'm going to open it. And so the first page is how to use it in Visual Basic. I used to teach this class with VB and C# together. But the second page is on how to bring the input box from VB into C# and use it in a C# program. So I have some steps here. You create your C# project, and then from the project menu, you're going to choose Add Reference, and we're going to select Microsoft Visual Basic from the .NET Framework, and there'll be a checkbox. We're going to select that and click OK, and then we're going to save our project, and then we can use it by referencing Microsoft.visualbasic.interaction.inputbox. And then your little screenshot here, but here is the code. So before we had XYZ equals input box, we had enter your first and last name. So instead of just input box, we use Microsoft.visualbasic.interaction.inputbox. Well, let's give it a try. So here's my VB program. I'm going to select the entire interface, doing a Control A, that selects both buttons. And it doesn't set the properties of the form, but it does set the properties of both buttons. And I'm going to copy that. So Control C to copy. I'm going to create a new project. And once again, I'm going to do a C# project. Say next, and we're just going to call this InputBox demo. And I'll say InputBox demo C#. I'm going to click Create. So there's my project. I'm going to wrap this up a little bit, and I'm just going to do a Control V to paste my buttons. There's my two buttons. I'll change the name of the form to be InputBox demo C#. And I'm going to change the background color of the form. I'll do something a little bit different from the VB one. Let's just make it a dark green. From previous lessons, you should be able to code the message box button, but let's look at how to code the input box button. I'm going to go to the project menu and choose Add Reference. I'm going to click on the Assemblies Framework and find Microsoft Visual Basic. So it's here in this list. I'm going to check that item and then say OK. And what I want to do at this point probably is save my project. So I'm going to choose Save All. And I'm going to code that button. So I'm just going to do the input box here first. So we had XYZ equals, and I can say Microsoft.visualbasic. I want to go down to interaction, where you could type that in, .input box. And there it is. And so my input box, I can say, please enter your first and last names. That is the prompt I want to have showing. The title is going to be simply input needed. And I'm going to do a default value. So I do a comma, and the default value here is the string is my default response. And my default, I need to put that in quotes since it is a string value. We'll put in John Doe. And then the other choice I could do would be to set the X position and the Y position. That's optional. I'm not going to bother to do that here. I'm just simply going to say, put a semicolon after that and conclude that line. Oh, my XYZ here, I need to declare that as a string. And then notice I misspelled your. So I'll fix that. I want to show what they entered so we can make sure this is actually working. So I'll just use a message box here, messagebox.show. We'll just very simply say you entered, and then I'm going to concatenate with that XYZ. And I need my semicolon. Okay, so that's using the input box. Let's test this. So here's my program. I'm going to click Demonstrate Input Box, and I get the input box running in my C# program. I put in John Doe. Let's just change that again to George Washington, and click OK. And I'm told you entered George Washington. So that is working, and that is how we can use an input box to get string data, or to get string data and convert it to an integer or a double or a float value as needed. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the C# Xamarin Programming Cohort playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos that I create, you can click my picture up in the top right and subscribe to the channel.